She nodded, watching him through half-closed eyes as he squatted before the fire, the jeans stretching tight around his thighs.
This is I Don't Even Own a Television. Nights in Rodanthe.
Rodanthe?
Rodanthe.
Rodanthe.
Nights in Rodan.
We are the knights who say, Rodanthe.
1, 2, 3.
There are books that are good, there are books that are bad. There's some books so fucking awful you wish you never had read them at all. 'Cause a novel can ruin your life. Hey buddy, I don't even own a television.
All right, welcome to I Don't Even Own a Television. It's a podcast about bad books. My name is J.W. Doc Friedman. I'm doing this every episode now.
And with my jeans stretching tight around my thighs, I am Chris Collision.
And this is a show where we talk about books that we've read. Fair warning, normally I would say we don't swerve this far out of our lane, but there's several reasons for it this time around. One of which is, as you know, it's the holiday season. Whoop-de-doo, as the song goes. And so our scheduling's been a little messed up, so we needed to pick one of the shortest possible books on our list.
Not to bring you too deep into the kitchen.
So we went with this 243-page monster. The other is that I feel like, you know, while we are two men and the romance genre is generally geared towards women, this is a romance novel written by a man who doesn't seem to understand what romance is. So I, personally, feel very qualified to relate to him.
As Patti Smith once said, I'm an artist, I'm an American artist, and I feel no guilt. Personally, I think it would be a travesty of the highest order for a self-respecting Bad Books podcast, or for that matter, us, to ply our trade and not talk about the man, the myth, the legend, the magic, the mystery, Nicholas freaking Sparks.
Yeah, Nicholas Sparks, the James Patterson of the romance world, for sure. This man is a book factory. He churns them out like nobody's business, and I don't mean that in a sexual way.
His grocery lists are probably optioned to be mid-list motion pictures with actors you haven't seen in a little while, but are really glad to see up there on the screen again.
But yeah, so I'm going to say right off the top, I'm pretty positive about a lot of the aspects of this book. I do think that, you know, it's a book that's written about older people falling in love, which isn't something you get a lot in the world of fiction. And, you know, a lot of it's kind of sweet. Yeah. It's unfortunately very poorly written, but it is what it is. And if you're here to listen to us make fun of romance, wrong episode. But if you are here to listen to us make fun of the way Nicholas Sparks writes books, you're come to the right place.
Welcome, friends.
Exactly. Because, yeah, man, he's got a very unique style. And there aren't a lot of words that I could use to describe it other than bland, repetitive, formulaic, and, well, what's the one? Manipulative. That's the word I was looking for.
It's a little like reading H.P. Lovecraft, where Lovecraft never actually scares you. He just tells you all the time that you're scared and that what he's showing you is super duper duper scary.
Yeah, Italians and Jews.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is like that, except sad or emotionally moving or romantic.
Yeah, but to be fair, this is that particular breed of romance that trades mostly in tragedy and people, you know, brought together by tragedy. And most of it's a very cheap, unearned kind of tragedy. And this is one of those books, we've read a couple of these before, that I got a little bit mad at because it was making me feel emotions that I don't think it deserved to make me feel. Just by bringing up things, you know, like it's poorly written, but it brings up these really obvious touchstones that are going to make you feel kind of bummed out. And that shit, ooh, I don't like that at all.
For sure. We were talking off air, and the comparison you made was a movie that is constantly putting, say, adorable puppies in harm's way.
Yeah.
It's a shortcut.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, yeah, we'll get into it in depth, but basically there is not a human relationship in this book that doesn't either begin with or end with somebody either dying or, you know, growing farther apart, and it's all kind of all bummer all the time in a lot of ways, and I did not like that aspect of it at all.
Yeah, and I want to be very clear up front that this is a book that basically has a mission statement, and I am all in on the mission statement. I think it's great. I think a romance about folks, frankly, not a heck of a lot older than me.
Yeah.
I think that should be on the table. I think that's a wonderful thing. I just feel terrible that the person carrying this banner and banging that drum is Nicholas Sparks, because it's like he's so ham-fisted, he's not welcome during Hanukkah. You know,
it's like going to immerse yourself into a bubble bath.
Yeah.
You've got the candles lit and all that, and then the water is ice cold.
Yeah. So I'm going to read you effectively what the mission statement is. And this is a book in which at exactly the midway point, Paul, the main character, muses to himself, he really thought he was falling for Adrienne.
Yeah.
Like the exact midpoint.
He's
nicely done.
He's shaking at her touch. He likes her way too much. My baby, I'm afraid he's falling for her.
Oh, I thought you were doing Hot-Blooded.
Oh, no, I mean, we'll get into this later too, but pretty much most of this album could be put, to power ballads from the 70s or Weezer's Pinkerton, depending on what age you are. So, yeah.
Now I like it even less.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Don't even get me started on Pinkerton.
Here's what I take the mission statement to be. In a room, she slipped out of her clothes and opened her suitcase, looking for a pair of pajamas. As she did, she caught the reflection of herself in the mirror. Not too bad, but let's be honest here. She looked her age. Paul, she thought, had been sweet when he'd said she'd needed nothing done. It had been a long time since someone had made her feel attractive.
Yep. And nothing done in this case is talking about the fact that Paul is a facial surgeon, and she asked him what kind of facial surgery she should have, and he said she needed nothing done. Aw, how sweet.
Yeah, that's... boy, Dickens would have wept to read this depth of emotion.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go ahead and start things off here with plot in 60 seconds, where Collision is going to have 60 seconds to try to tell us...
Why are you laughing already?
I think...
What's funny here?
I think you can do this one. I think you can do it. The only thing that may get you, I think, is the overwhelming number of side characters. So we'll see if you fall into that trap or not.
And the other thing that might get me is that I'm going to attempt a early period Eminem cadence just to get through all the words as fast as I can.
Are you going to Flanagan's to get a Flanagan? Oh, referencing YouTube videos and podcasts is always the best thing to do.
Hilarious.
Okay. Oh yeah, we didn't play the song. Here it is.
Nobody knows if you finish or not. You got 60 seconds to give them a plot. Plot in 60 seconds.
Okay, so Collision, are you ready?
God damn it, I am.
Begin.
Pretty young Amanda has a problem. Her young husband has died, and it's causing her to parent inadequately, according to her brothers. Her mother decides it's time for an intervention, and we realize that Amanda is just the frame story, and really what's important is her mom, Adrienne, and her story. Some years back, it seems, Adrienne had some problems of her own, including an entire life put on hold to raise her 3 kids and deal with her husband, who... just left her for another woman. Plus, her dad is in a nursing home, unable to speak, and the money is running out. She goes to run her friend's bed and breakfast for a couple days down in Rodanthe, a nice, quiet little beach community. There's a storm a-comin', and only one guest booked, Paul Flanner. And he's got some problems of his own, and they go, hard-charging surgeon, wife done left him, son's estranged and in Ecuador, patient died on the table, and her widower wrote a letter and wants a word, down in Rodanthe. Will Jack learn the meaning of family?
Yes.
Will Adrienne feel valued as a person and a deeply sexual being?
Yes.
Will Amanda get her shit together?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Will sad widower get closure? Oops, we kind of forgot about him.
No.
Will it all end happily after ever for Jack and Adrienne? Only a night in Rodanthe can answer.
I think you did it. But yeah, sad widower really does get the short shrift in this book.
He gets a big come to Jesus moment conversation with Jack where he gets to confront him, tell him, my wife died under your care. I blame you. You need to know what kind of wonderful person she was. And then he pieces out, and Jack is like, wow, that was really a bummer. I really didn't like hearing that. And that's the end of that subplot.
He does cry.
He does cry.
And then, that's one of those moments in this book that I was talking about earlier where you're like, oh, this character was only introduced to make me bummed out. Mm-hmm. And I did not like that. But yeah, that's
to add some stakes.
It is a good synopsis that you did. I think the important thing that I want to emphasize is the fact that I kept forgetting this book is built into a framing device.
Right.
And that framing device is, as you mentioned, a mother going over to talk to her daughter who's just lost her husband and decided to tell her this story from her past. And so, like, every so often, a chapter will just cut back to the two of them sitting at the dinner table drinking drinking some tea, I think.
I believe it's a Pinot Grigio.
Oh, it is. No, that happens later. I have notes about the Pinot Grigio.
I think that Adrienne has developed a bit of a taste for the Pinot Grigio.
And for reasons we'll speak about.
Because she associates it in her mind with the great romantic experience of her life down in Rodanthe with Jack. Do they bone? Do they do it?
Oh, they do it.
They do it.
Multiple times. Yep. And is this woman telling her daughter a story that involves her doing it multiple times?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a multi-paragraph stretch where Adrienne's reflecting to herself, I'm not going to tell Amanda who did what to who in the bedroom. I'll just let her know that things went down.
It says, man, I wish I had highlighted it, but I didn't. I let her imagination do the work because I'm sure anything she can think of would be more like, I forgot how they described it, sexier or something like that. And I'm like, why do you want your daughter to have sexy thoughts about you? That's weird.
I mean, speaking as a parent, I would be ashamed if my children didn't know that I threw down and got hella nasty.
That's true. But, I mean, as most Nicholas Sparks works, if you're unfamiliar, this is a very chaste romance. So while they do get it on, most of that happens off page. You hear more about them settling down to bed, waking up in the morning. There's not, descriptions of like actual raw dog going on here.
There's a very long description of the breakfast in bed he serves her. There is no explicit description of the sex. If this were a made-for-TV movie, and it is, it's definitely the kind of made-for-TV movie that would cut to a lingering close-up of a candle flame.
Yeah, or like the Brady Bunch or whatever, where they pull the covers up over their head.
What the fuck were you watching?
I think it was the Brady Bunch. It was one of those sitcoms from that era where the parents, before they were about to get down occasionally, they'd pull the covers up over their head and then they'd cut to commercial.
Is this a short film you saw on the internet recently?
Yeah, it was about 15 minutes and 43 seconds
long.
Was it
called The Brady Hump?
That might have been it, actually.
Here's a story of a busty lady.
For some reason, Alice kept walking in. I don't know what was going on.
Okay, but I have to ask one final question about it. Did he fix her cable?
Yes, he did.
Okay, thank God.
Okay, yeah, everything was back to normal at the end. The pizza was delivered successfully.
Great.
But there was one of those shows like that. Where it's like the parents would finally have time alone, frisky time, and they would pull the covers up over their head and then they cut to commercial. But I like your candle flame better. I think that's a little more accurate. This is a Hallmark Channel, kind of like, if this were a movie, Dave and Jeb would be talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, on Dave and Jeb Aren't Mean, a good podcast you should listen to. We were on it once.
Exactly. And past guest and friend of the show, Maura Johnston, was on their last one talking about a movie directed by Mariah Carey.
Oh.
So if that doesn't make your podcast antennae stand up, I don't know what will.
I mean, it means almost for sure there was a pony covered in glitter in that movie. And so now I'm totally down to watch it. Oh, okay.
But back to One Night in Rodanthe makes a hard man crumble.
It does. It's much like playing chess, which you may have heard recently. The World Chess Championships, first time ever, went to 12 straight draws.
Which is almost as gripping as the tale spun in this Nicholas Sparks book.
Well, I was just going to say, reading this book was so exciting that I had that tab open and kept getting distracted by The tales of two brave chessmen.
Right.
So
Not going for it.
yeah. Okay. I guess we should do high points, low points.
I get my kicks above the waistline, sunshine, so let's do it.
Okay.
High points are high,
And the points are low.
high points.
Low points, get ready to go.
All right. So high points, low points. Let's start out with the good. Collision, can you go first? I got to think for a second.
I would adore to go first. And I'm going to start with the very last sentence. And that last sentence goes a little something like, staring into the sky, she breathed deeply, listening to the distant and imagined echo of waves as they broke along the shore on a stormy night in Rodanthe.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? I just kept hearing Peter Cetera.
Staring into the sky, she breathed deeply, listening to the distant and imagined echo of waves as they broke along the shore on a stormy night in Rodanthe.
That time it was Styx.
As longtime listeners know, I have an ironclad rule. If the name of the story is in the movie, I raise it 1/2 letter grade. I give it another 1/2 letter grade if it is the last line in the movie.
Oh, shit, you're right.
So that really helped the average on this. I get that it's not a movie, but it really kind of is.
It is also a movie. We didn't see the movie. I don't know if there's narration or not, but I bet there is, and I bet it ends with that line. And if not, don't add us, because I want to pretend that's the case.
Either way, and I hope it's not narration. I hope it's Diane Lane smoking a cigarette, looking straight into the camera, and just saying the words like a bad Steven Seagal moment.
That would be Nights in Rodanthe.
Yeah.
Just a hard cut to credits. And then fucking, I want to know what love is, starts playing.
Yeah, exactly. That's extremely the aesthetic and indeed the technique of this book. But you know, it's a little bit like that Simpsons moment where the bully kid is inexplicably super into, I think, Andy Williams, and he drags everybody to the Andy Williams show.
I'm pretty sure it is.
And he's sobbing at the end. He's like, I can't believe he did Moon River. I didn't think he was going to do it. And then, bam, third encore. And that was very much me at the end of this. I was like, oh my God, Nicholas Sparks, I can't believe you went for it like that. But you did. And my hat's off.
No, very true. Yeah, I had totally forgotten about your titular line rule, and this does pass with flying colors.
I might have to call it the Nicholas Sparks rule from here on out.
Yeah. So I guess my first high point is just that, you know, I grew up in an area where we experienced a lot of extreme weather, hurricanes and whatnot, and I lived there until my mid-20s. And the parts of this book did bring back some pretty good memories of, you know, hunkering down, because, you know, while hurricanes can be incredibly devastating at times, and I'm not here to say they're wonderful things, because, you know, our country has been ravaged by increasingly bad ones over the past few years. When it's not a huge major disaster, there is something that does bring people closer together, I think, about being kind of the power's out, you're stuck in the house with your family or your girlfriend or someone you care about. You're playing cards under a door jam in case the house collapses, things like that, you know. And I do like, I guess this is a little paratextual, huh? That's my word lately. But it made me think a lot about those moments and how storms can be kind of they bring people together in a nice way sometimes. So,
and not just to yell and laugh at shirtless Steve standing out in the middle of the street shirtlessly.
Or if you live in Florida, like I did, not to turn on the news before the power goes out and watch all the crazy stories about the guys that have, like, chained themselves to street signs and are yelling, I ain't no afraid of no hurricanes. Come and get me, Ivan. I'm a-waiting. So,
Whoa.
I remember one year we got hit with 3 hurricanes in a row. They were interviewing people in a hurricane shelter on the local news, and one guy just started freestyling and going... We took our chances with Francis. We're surviving through Ivan and all this kind of stuff. Oh, it was great. It was really, really good. So, yeah.
I mean, you strike when the opportunity arises.
Yeah, someone puts a mic and a camera on you, and you're either doing that or you're talking about how the whistle tips, they're just for desperation. Pardon me. You're talking about how the whistle tips, they're just for decoration, but the whistle go whoop, whoop. Second YouTube video referenced in this podcast. I apologize.
Just as confused as you are, guys.
You don't remember Big Bub?
What are you talking about? No.
Okay.
I don't know what a big bub is.
I have to show you later, but
Okay.
the whistle go whoop. So that's all you need to know.
Is there going to be...
It's an Oakland thing, dude.
Is there going to be room? I've never honestly had any use for any music other than Neurosis that came out of Oakland.
Oh, it's not music.
Oh, great.
I'll show you later.
Nearly every muffler shop in Oakland is installing Whistler tips. It's a piece of metal welded inside the exhaust pipes that makes the car audible for almost a mile. Tell me about the whistles.
The whistles go woo.
Anybody that has it in their neighborhood's going to be totally driven crazy.
It sounds like what?
Well, you want to woo woo? It's that woo woo.
Is there going to be room in my heart, for something bub related next to my deep and abiding love for Bubs the Cat and Bubba Sparks?
I don't know, but I don't even remember the context, and I'm pretty sure it was a listener wrote to us and said that if they get another dog, they're going to name him Bubba Barks. What? Oh, it's because I was drunk one night on Twitter recently and was asking people to write in with good band names that were spoonerisms, because I thought about Buck Cherry and how clever their name is, even though they're the worst band on the planet.
Right.
And somebody wrote back that it wasn't a band name, but they were going to name a dog Bubba Barks, and that made me laugh really hard.
White guy doing white metal blues, but taking it back to their blues roots. He's from Canada. Zed Leplin.
Zed Leplin, that's a good one. Yeah. Turns out there aren't as many as I thought. There's Com Trues, which not quite as clever as Buck Cherry. I got to say, like, Buck Cherry didn't do a lot of things right.
You are weirdly impressed by that.
It's clever as hell, dude.
I'm not even sure it was intentional.
Oh. Yeah, they accidentally flipped Chuck Berry.
Have you ever heard anything smart come out of Buck Cherry?
I'm not sure because I can't tell them apart from Jet. And
You're crazy, bitch, but you fuck so good, I'm into it. That's their one song.
Oh, I thought they did Stone Cold Bitch. So they were a different
I wouldn't
band.
know that. I don't know. I only know one Buck Cherry song.
I'm thinking of Jet, but it's good to know they both have songs that involve the B word.
Right. Well, I mean, we're all big Elton John fans here.
Yeah. So, okay. Where were we?
Elton John, famous for "The Bitch Is Back," is
that was the
there.
joke. Yeah.
I'm not calling Elton John Jesus. That would be awful.
No, I mean we've done enough.
Please do not mistake me.
We've done enough talking about Eminem on the show in the past, so we don't need to go there again. But Blanigan.
And that was just the high points, folks.
Oh, that's where we were.
Imagine how bad it's going to get when we start talking about aspects of this book we didn't enjoy.
Well, I'm going to be real here.
Like a weird bullshit made-up rule that has been making me and only me laugh for like 15 years. And Jay's strangely positive memories of growing up in a hurricane zone.
I was born in a crossfire one, man. So it stuck around.
And the next line I only know the incorrect version of, which is, "You were raised by two lesbians in hell," which I gather is not the actual lyric.
No, it's not. And it's not, "There's a bathroom on the right," either. Which, those are called Mondegreens, by the way. And there's also a really good one in "Stairway to Heaven" where it sounds like he says, "If you listen very closely, the Jew will bother you a lot," which is also a great description of listening to this podcast.
Excuse me while I kiss this guy, would you?
Oh, damn. Okay, one of my favorites of those. Fuck it. I mean, there's so little to talk about in this book, we might as well go digression heavy. Gorilla Biscuits, frequently mentioned on this program, 1980s positive hardcore band.
By you.
By me, because I love them. They had a song about being vegan called Cats and Dogs, and talking about not eating meat. And then the breakdown of it says, "Why am I so upset? Don't even own a pet. Not trying to force my will. I'm not the first to say, 'Thou shalt not kill.'" But it's gang vocals, so it sounds like, "I'm not the first to say, 'Nacho, Nacho.'" It fucking rules.
I like Nachos a lot. Yeah. Also, like most straight edge posy bands, they don't just sound like youth gang vocals. They sound like Muppets.
Yeah, and it sounds like Muppets brought in 20 of their Muppet friends to the recording session to all huddle into the recording booth with like maybe 2 pairs of headphones between them. So they're kind of all at different times. And oh God, I miss gang vocals so much.
And as always, if you want the most perfect version of this imaginable, Google Crucial Youth.
Well, Crucial Youth was a joke, but they were great.
But they were a good joke because they did the musical and other aesthetic aspects of it perfectly.
Yeah, and they were a better joke than Angry Samoans because their name isn't offensive.
Right.
Yeah. So let's get back to talking about this romance novel.
Do you think we can find something that we didn't like about this?
Well, I mean, we could start with the really obvious one, but I don't know if you want to do it or if I should do it.
I guess I can say something slightly negative about this. This is going to get me into trouble a little bit.
Uh-oh.
Our character Jack is the most useful man in the world. He is a famous surgeon. He's the kind of plastic surgeon who gets written up in the Wall Street Journal. He's the kind of surgeon who goes for a lengthy run every morning. The kind of guy who can throw up storm shutters on your inn in a jiffy, whether or not he's ever even seen the inn before. The sort of guy who can get around a town he's never been to and go unerringly to the place he wants to go. The
kind of guy who runs every morning with socks on his hands for some reason.
Right. Yes, whatever.
Which that does happen.
Look, don't yuck his yum.
Okay.
He's the kind of guy who can build a fire with zero problems in a strange environment. Mm-hmm. And here's a quick guide to Jack in the kitchen. He will chuckle indulgently when he hasn't mentioned he's a surgeon, and she's like, "Do you think you can manage to peel these potatoes?" And he's like, "My knife skills are so good because did I mention I'm a surgeon?"
Oh.
But he doesn't know how to look for a corkscrew or a paring knife, despite the fact that he's in a fucking kitchen. Like, the line is literally, "Let me look in the drawer. I think I saw a corkscrew there." She has to say this to him.
Well, okay. I was going to do these in a different order, but now that you've mentioned the cooking scenes, I'm going to swap my low points, which is that I don't think Nicholas Sparks has ever cooked a meal in his life or watched someone cook a meal in his life. He has very, very what's the word I'm looking for? Basic taste in food for someone who's describing romantic meals.
They are literally meat and potatoes.
They are, and this was one of the things that I actually wrote a very angry note in my message in my notes about, and that before the storm, Adrian goes out to stock up on food, and then tells him, "We have. Do you want steak or chicken or something else? I forgot." And he's like, "I think I'll go for the chicken." And she's like, "Great, we'll have the potatoes with that." And motherfucker, have the potatoes with the goddamn steak. That's a better pairing.
Well, well, you might be right. I thought they had steak and potatoes.
No, they don't.
Night.
Nope. They have chicken and potatoes the first night, which bugged the shit out of me. And then there's also a long description of this. I'm trying so hard to find it right now, where these two people, both of whom are supposed to be in their 40s. Ah, here it is. In their 40s/early 50s, neither of whom seem to know what a Pinot Grigio is.
Oh, that actually is a low-key high point for me. I really want you to read that.
Okay, so
this was almost my dramatic reading.
Oh, me too. It came really close. And the way Nicholas Sparks describes it's not supposed to be the naivete of these characters. These are supposed to be worldly people who have experienced a lot of what life has to offer talking to each other. "Is there anything to drink?" Paul called out from behind her. "In the refrigerator, I mean." Which, okay, problem number one, we aren't going to get there.
If only there was some way to find out if there's anything to drink in the refrigerator, you fucking numbnuts.
Adrian pushed aside a few items before looking on the bottom shelf. There were 3 bottles lying on their sides, held in place by a jar of pickles.
Okay, I feel so seen right now.
I know, I was just thinking about that. Like, my fridge right now contains a lot of beer, a bunch of yogurts, and a jar of pickles. So,
Nicholas Sparks, you get me.
"Do you like wine? What kind is it? She set the chicken on the counter, then pulled one of the bottles out. It's a Pinot Grigio.
Wait, she didn't wash her hands?
Nope.
That is a salmonella
Like I
epidemic
said,
waiting to happen.
This man has never cooked or watched anyone prepare a meal. It's a Pinot Grigio. Is that okay? This is Paul, once again, our worldly facial surgeon. I've never tried it. I usually go with a Chardonnay. Have you? No.
Have you? What?
He crossed the kitchen.
That's not how grammar works.
Nope. He crossed the kitchen carrying the potatoes. After setting them on the counter, he reached for the wine. Adrienne saw him study the label for a moment before looking up. Sounds okay. Says it's got hints of apples and oranges. So how bad can it be?
Okay, I drink a lot of wine. I'm a member of a wine club. If the wine label says what it tastes like,
And it's not just a jam bomb, quote unquote.
that's probably
Yeah.
not a great wine. I'm worried about this one.
Yeah, I mean, do you know where I might find a corkscrew? They're in the fucking kitchen.
Yeah.
Check the drawers, dummy.
Yeah, I know. I think I could probably puzzle this one out.
Well, then they do. But luckily, neither of them know how to use it. So they have a clumsily romantic moment. This is before they're actually engaged in an official romance. We're in the meet cute period, I would say.
Yeah. They're still in the feeling out process rather than leaping straight, as younger people might, to the feeling up process.
It's true. But then suddenly, I'm jumping ahead a little bit here. With a few quick moves, he removed the cork and set it off to the side. So this is a man who doesn't know what a Pinot Grigio is, reads the label, goes, hints of lemons and oranges. That sounds tasty. Where's the corkscrew? But then when he finds it, opens it, this dude, like, he's a man of surprises.
Jay, I just want to tell you, he's got good hands.
Well, yeah, he's a surgeon, and there's nothing surgeons rely on more than their corkscrew skills. Especially if you watch the type of movies I do.
I'm just saying that for the audience this book was intended for, a man with good hands and an unexpected treat of Pinot Grigio, that might resonate a little more than it does for us.
A man with slow hands and an easy touch.
Exactly.
Because once again, we're back to 70s power ballads because that's what this book is.
That's what this book is.
Yeah. But yeah, so that really bothered me. Later on, there's on the next night when she cooks dinner, it says, Adrienne.
Oh, he was so mad. He texted me about this.
I did. I texted. Adrienne broiled 2 steaks, which I was like, motherfucker, you should have just wrote Adrienne ruined 2 steaks. And I know that this is going to be a little controversial amongst our audience, but if you are just straight up broiling a steak, enjoy your fucking shoe leather. That's not a good way to cook a steak.
When I still ate meat, my way of cooking a steak was to chop up some raw, I almost said marshmallows. No, not marshmallows, mushrooms. Dump them on top of a piece of meat. Pour some red wine on top of it, and then put it in the oven at 450 for about 45 minutes, and then I would eat it.
I hate you so much right now.
It used to kind of mostly give me a stomach ache.
Yeah.
But I didn't eat steak that much or for very long.
For the folks at home, I'll let you in on my patented recipe here. You can tell people you figured it out on your own. Or you could tell people you found it out on this show. It doesn't matter. But what you want to do is you rub some salt and pepper, maybe some other seasonings you like on the steak. Make sure it's lukewarm before you start cooking it. Put a little bit of oil in a cast iron skillet. Heat that shit up. Brown it on each side for about, 2, 3, 4 minutes till it gets a little bit of a crust. Meanwhile, you heat the broiler up. You put the whole cast iron skillet into the oven. You broil it, but only for like 4 minutes. Then you will get a wonderful rare steak. Medium rare if you want. Take it back out of the broiler, put it on the burner, flip it around. If you want to get real decadent, you can brush some butter on it.
Grab that big bottle of Hunt's ketchup you've got.
Yep, exactly.
Just shake that bad boy all over that steak.
And we're going to get like 10 emails now with people describing the reverse sear. And yes, I know what the reverse sear is, but in my opinion, it's a lot of extra work for very little benefit. So just do it the way I said it, but don't just put it under the fucking broiler. God damn it, Nicholas Sparks.
Wait, how do you know what the reverse sear is? Did you see this in the Brady Hump video you were watching?
Possibly. Anyway, no, that made me really mad. It's like, first she pairs the potatoes with the chicken, so Lord knows what they're having aside with a steak. Probably like something completely weird and strange, like, I don't know, fava beans or something.
No, it's a huge meal. I actually looked it up. They're having chicken with green beans and potatoes.
The green beans
I
would have
think-
gone great with the chicken just fine. But
I think separate dishes.
Yeah.
And he's making a salad with cucumber and tomato, and I
Okay.
think some greens, although that's not explicit.
it could just be a bowl of cucumber and tomato. Who
It's
knows?
kind of a Greeky salad,
some
maybe.
little flash pickling going on there.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, so I'm uncertain what's left over for the steaks. Perhaps some nice mashed potatoes.
Yeah,
nice,
or maybe
nice,
they-
nice baked.
Maybe they were just out of side dishes by then and just ate steaks with their hands because, I mean, they've just broiled steaks. Once again, I would not put it past them. I have opinions about steaks, people. Like I said, I know this will be controversial, but yeah, just reading that really upset me a lot. Nicholas Sparks, do your research.
Well, if that upset you, imagine how upset I was where guy standing in kitchen will not look for either a paring knife or a corkscrew to do the jobs he's been asked to do, but will, when he's doing a task for himself in the making fire department several chapters later, quote, nose around until he found the matches.
That's a good point. Yeah. He's
Right.
willing to rummage when it's his thing.
Yeah, and that's why I said way back that this will get me into trouble. Sorry, honey.
I do think it's worth noting that in this book, up until basically the moment that his marriage ends, Paul, our hero, is described as being a horrible person. And I don't know if it's like intentional or if you're just supposed to think he's so driven and he's so good at his job that he's he's forgot how to be a human being and he can't turn it off and just relax and needs the right person to come along. But what it comes across as is that he's this like mean, cantankerous asshole who goes out of his way to ignore his family. It says he didn't change a diaper or hold his baby for the first 2 months that it was born. And I had a note, is this good? Question mark.
His kid has a conversation with Adrienne, or he writes her a letter at one point. His estranged son, Mark, writes Adrienne a letter to kind of give her the heads up on some important things that, spoiler, it does not end happily for Paul and old Adrienne.
Well, nothing ends happily for anybody in this book, but yeah.
Right. But he writes her a letter and he mentions he was literally never at so much as one basketball game, one school play, one, school concert, any of that. He was completely absent. And I think he's not supposed to be actively unpleasant. He's just this kind of type A go-getter personality.
Yeah, but he comes across as actively unpleasant, I feel like. I did not like him. Even when he was supposed to be likable later, I still did not like him. Like, there was something about this type of personality. Maybe it's just me, but I find it really off-putting.
Well, it's a very male-gazy version of what somebody thinks women like. He doesn't need to be actively hectored into talking about his feelings.
That's true.
But he was a high achiever, and he's literally good at everything. He doesn't shirk. He's extremely neat and clean around the house within limits. For example, his shoes are lined up exactly perpendicular to the wall.
He keeps his pants under the mattress like Jack Reacher.
Jack Reacher, but throws towels just on the floor in the bathroom.
Yeah.
He makes his bed, but not very well.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's a weird picture of a kind of welcoming masculinity,
But also just so fucking basic. I'm sorry. I gotta get back to food for one more second.
You know how you sell 1 million copies of things?
You make it really basic.
You don't worry about hipster fucking cred because
Okay.
there's not that many hipsters and they don't buy anything. They mostly
Especially
sit
not-
around and complain about shit.
Especially not books in airports.
Yeah.
But though he'd claimed ignorance in the kitchen, he surprised her by bringing breakfast to her on a tray in bed. This is the morning after they first get it on. He sat with her as she ate, laughing as she leaned against the pillows, trying and failing to keep the sheet high up enough to cover her breasts. The French toast was delicious.
Okay, that's a little bit weird.
Yeah. The French...
Ah, Karen, I just saw your dirty pillows.
I saw your boob. By the way,
You're trying to cover yourself, but you can't. I find that pleasing.
Well, he's creepy in some ways too, but we'll get there. The French toast was delicious. The bacon was crispy without being burned, and he'd added just the right amount of grated cheddar cheese to the scrambled eggs. A child could make this meal. Like, at least have him poach an egg or something if I'm supposed to be impressed.
I couldn't make that fucking meal.
Okay, sorry.
It's also explicit, like the paragraph you didn't read right before that. She was married for like 18 years and is the mother of 3, and no one's ever brought her breakfast in bed.
It said her kids had at one point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, but never her husband.
So sometimes it's the gesture that counts, not the sophistication of the gesture.
Okay, I'm done ranting and raving about Nicholas Sparks and food now, but this is a man who should probably just leave the food shit out of his books, I feel like. Like, they ate dinner. It was nice.
Yeah, treat your meals like you treat acts of non-procreative sex.
Yeah.
And then treat sex like you treat acts of putting shutters on a house. Or treat, I don't know, what else does he do? Packing your duffel bags. That's how you know also, by the way, that he's a real man's man, is that all of his luggage consists of this endless procession of duffel bags.
He's got that Jack Reacher in him for
Look,
sure.
I'm in my mid-40s. About a year ago, I finally took it down a notch and tried luggage with wheels.
Whoa.
Instead of just throwing the old duffel over my shoulder. And I want to say one thing about that. Luggage with wheels is fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. I've been a fan for a while, but I guess I'm not as manly as you.
Jesus Christ. You know what's manly about, like, getting exhausted and your back hurting all the time? Not fucking much.
Can I go on to my next low point real quick?
Sure. No, I want to talk about duffel bags some more, Jay.
Well,
I got some rave reviews for how long I spent on the Swiss Army knife a couple episodes ago. So no, let me go deep into my opinions about bags.
Well, if you like, you could give the people at home some, step-by-step techniques on how to pack a duffel bag. It would go nicely with my steak recipes. So.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the secret. Bags in other bags. You're welcome.
All right. The way Nicholas Sparks writes is a huge low point of this book, because this is a guy, we've done books by several men like this before, but he doesn't like to write. He likes to explain. And this book at times feels like you're reading a to-do list or perhaps an instruction manual. I have a small example here. This is Adrienne going into town to go shopping. Adrienne made the short drive to town and pulled into the small gravel parking lot of the general store, breathing a sigh of relief to find out that it was still open. There were 3 cars out front, parked haphazardly, each coated with a thin layer of salt. A couple older men wearing baseball hats were standing out front, smoking and drinking coffee. They watched Adrienne as she got out of the car, and as she passed them on her way into the store, they nodded a greeting. The store was typical of those in rural areas. A scuffed wooden floor, ceiling fans, shelves with thousands of various items packed close together. Near the register was a small barrel offering dill pickles for sale. Yes. Next to that was another barrel containing roasted peanuts. In the rear was a small grill offering fresh cooked burgers and fish sandwiches, and though no one was behind the counter, the odor of fried food lingered in the air. The ice machine was in the far rear corner, next to the refrigerated compartments containing beer and soda. So, my question to you, Collision.
Yeah.
Would you like to go north, go west, go left, examine the ice machine, or, there's...
I want to talk to my 2 favorite characters in the book so far. Dill Pickle Barrel and Salted Peanut Barrel.
Yeah, roasted peanuts.
I was going to say, the only surprising thing about that entire section is that the ice machine is actually relevant, because the reason she's gone to the store is to get ice because they think the power's going to go out.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I've said it before about other books, but this type of writing is like those logic exercises where they tell you to step by step describe how to make a peanut butter sandwich, like every step, like first you open the cabinet, then you get out the peanut butter, then you get out the bread, then you get out the jelly out of the fridge, then you get out the butter knife, then you open the peanut butter. Don't forget to close the peanut, like
you just do the whole thing in Python. You just import PB&J from the food module at the very beginning, and you're good to go.
No, that's what you work up to later.
Somebody else has already done the work for you, and they're probably a better programmer than you are. Why not just rest on their laurels?
Inside, Adrienne set the cooler next to the refrigerator, cut open the bags of ice with a steak knife, and poured them in. She pulled out some cheese, the fruit that had been left over from breakfast, and the chicken from the night before, stacking it with the ice, thinking
Wait. Okay, hold on. So first off, it sounds like she put the chicken on top of things, which you never do.
Yeah.
Because chicken drips.
Yep.
You want the stuff that needs to be frozen at the bottom, and then you go warmer as you go up. 2, it sounds like she put some shit on top of some fruit,
Yep.
and it sounds like she put some fruit in direct contact with the ice. I'm a man who owns 2 coolers. I'm not a man who's impressive in very many ways, but I am a man who owns 2 coolers. And I like to think that I know how to put things in them. I don't. My girlfriend usually looks at what I've done and then redoes it right. While I look on and kind of grunt, sadly. But nevertheless.
It's about to get worse.
It
Then,
can't.
noting that there was still room, she grabbed one of the bottles of wine and put it on top, feeling a forbidden thrill at the thought of sharing the wine with Paul later.
Oh,
So-
that was literally going to be my next high point was, haha, forbidden wine. But
Yeah, I just love it because this is like reading an instruction book about how to assemble a bookshelf, but then like every paragraph is followed by think about hugging a lady.
it's a pretty good instruction manual in how to seduce a man of a certain age if the storm winds should blow. And if you think I'm talking about me, you're right.
If you're thinking about me,
Just
it
keep the
would-
chicken out of the cooler.
yeah, I was going to say it would take a lot less than putting chicken in a cooler.
A lot less?
Yeah, a lot less.
Wow.
Yeah, like, I don't know, be around, be pleasant, you know? Be interesting to talk to and pleasant and there. This isn't sad at all. Let's continue. What's your next low point?
Oh, Jesus. Pretty much everything. There's this big section in chapter 8, if I can find it. So they're exchanging feelings. We talked a lot earlier about how there's a lot of unearned sentiment here.
Yeah.
And
This book made me tear up once, and then I got really mad because it's not written well enough to provoke that.
yeah, you don't deserve that,
Yeah.
Nicholas Sparks. You deserve only the driest of eyes. So while this is happening, I'm mostly tuning out and kind of grinding my teeth because it's not very good. But I did catch this. With a smile, she leaned forward slightly. What do you miss the most about being married? I take it we're changing the subject. I figured it was your turn to share. It's the least I could do? She shrugged, something along those lines. Now that I've spilled my guts, it's your turn. Paul gave a mock sigh and gazed up at the ceiling. You know, I'm starting to see what you meant about thinking this guy is kind of a dick.
Yeah, who is likable that gives a mock sigh?
Yeah, that's a mock sigh after sort of asking in a mocking way a question of her. He has not graduated from the Chris Collision How to Flirt Academy.
So I just figured it was time to listen to something about you.
Okay, what I miss. He brought his hands together. Okay, this guy's fucking insufferable.
That's what I'm saying. Now he's tented his fingers.
Is he
It's me, Mr. Burns.
Is he a James Bond villain? Is he like stroking a cat menacingly?
Yeah, that could happen at any point.
Okay, what I miss. I guess it's knowing that someone is waiting for me when I get home from work. Usually I wouldn't be home until late, and sometimes Martha would already be in bed. But the knowledge that she was there seemed natural and reassuring, like the way things should be. Mm-hmm. This is not my especial favorite gender dynamic I've read this month.
No, me neither. It's very much like, you know what I miss about being married? Having someone waiting around for me.
Yeah, it seemed
Yeah.
natural, the way things should be. I didn't like that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, you know, there are many ways to have a relationship. There is not a natural way things should be. And especially when it revolves around a woman staying home, waiting for her man.
Baby, you know what I see when I look at you? I see that pretty little head of yours on a pillow when I get home at 2:30 because I've been at work. Let's say work. Yeah, the work store.
Out drinking with the boys who are back in town.
I work at the Martini Cologne factory. That's why I smell like this. Why do you ask? Also, I took a side job trying to develop detergents to get lipstick out of collars.
I was just going to make
Why do you ask about that?
I was just going to make a stupid lipstick collar joke, but yours was better anyway. So.
Also, we're at the chemical manufactory. We're trying to develop a kind of glitter that will stick on male skin. That's why there's glitter under my fingernails, baby. What could you possibly be thinking that glitter would have come from? Okay, I have to go now.
Later.
Sure, I'm glad we're married.
It was natural. It was the way things should be.
Yeah.
So, high points, I guess. It's going to be hard.
Dig up.
I'm going to say my high point, and this has nothing to do with the portrayal of the character himself because he is a fucking ridiculous stereotype. But I did think that the artificial stakes introduced by the fact that Paul has essentially... He's facing a malpractice suit because a woman he operated on died. And the reason he's in Rodanthe is her husband wrote him a letter that says, I need to talk to you in person. And it's very important to me that I do this.
He's also retired because you can't garnish the wages if the wages don't exist. Booyah!
Yeah, exactly. So
that's just speculation.
Yeah. But basically, like, while this character is basically written like Cletus from The Simpsons... he smokes unfiltered Camels, for God's sake. It's just such a fucking stereotype. I did think that was one of the more interesting parts of the book was this subplot, and I was really wondering what was going to happen. And as mentioned earlier, there is no closure with this. He goes to visit the man once. He meets his son instead, who chases him off with a shovel in one of the more exciting scenes in this book. Then the next day, the man comes to the bed and breakfast to talk to him. They have a brief discussion. He leaves. Paul cries. The end. You never find out what happens with this situation. But I did think that was one of the more interesting parts of the book. They tried to add some depth. Nicholas Sparks tried to add some depth to Paul's character, I feel like, by making it, he could have possibly made a mistake. Except for the fact that you're repeatedly told, Paul did not make a mistake, and this is just a thing that happened. But like that whole medical malpractice kind of side plot, I found one of the high points of the story. And it may have been because it was one of the parts of the story that didn't revolve around this very tepid attempt to kind of paint a portrait of people falling in love without really having meaningful conversations or interactions with each other.
I think that's all extremely fair. But I do want to hark back to something. Jay, we don't read nearly enough books with shovel chases. And that's weird, because you'd think if there's any two guys who would be reading a lot of books with shovel chases, we would be they.
Well, I'm going to give a little teaser. The next book we're going to talk about, well, I can't remember if it explicitly involves anyone chasing people with a shovel.
Right.
Shovels are definitely involved to a large degree.
That's right, folks. We're finally going back to Dean Koontz. We're reading Shovel Chasers.
God started, I told you to get off of my land.
I'll never get off your land.
I'll use my magical powers and chase you with this shovel
for
the rest of your life.
My dog and I will stay on your land.
Too bad I'm actually a shovel wizard. Look at my magical shovel. Oh, then the shovel was struck by lightning and the man's features seemed to change into some monster. You'll never stop my shovel, Dean. Okay, I'll stop.
Fuck, I don't think we even have to do Shovel Chasers now. I think we just did it.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I preferred the sequel, Shuttlecocks, but that's something that came on right after the Brady Hump had ended on autoplay.
The internet, it's great. Okay, so I owe you a high point, and it goes a little something like this. I'm going to go back to chapter 7. At one point, the following line gets said. It's all part of growing up, I guess. And that's very close to... very close to, I guess this is growing up. And it's immediately followed by a description of the relationship that Jack has with his estranged son, which is straight out of Cats in the Cradle, which is immediately followed by him assessing her looks with, as we've mentioned, the practiced eye of a plastic surgeon, and delivering either James Blunt's "You're Beautiful" or Billy Joel's "Just the Way You Are." And when she finally gets to talk, which I think happens in the next chapter, her description of her divorce is pretty much, but not as good as, Tammy Wynette's "Divorce."
Yeah.
It just goes on and on and on. There are lines of, not dialogue, but there are lines of narration in this that read like a Christopher Cross song, or as you said, a Styx song.
It's any of those like soft rock power ballads for sure. Like even like there's parts of this that reminded me of Kiss's Beth.
Right.
Especially at the beginning, you know, he's a busy plastic surgeon. He hears her calling, but he can't come home right now because he and the boys are working and you just can't find the nose shape.
He was lonely and so was she. Solitary travelers enjoying a deserted stretch of sand in an oceanside village called Rodanthe.
I was like, that turned into a like Tenacious D at the end there. There is so much of that, though. I was really hoping, like, after that, you know, this was growing up, I guess it was going to say,
yeah,
he got home late, work sucks, I know. But,
and then you get moments that are just pure poetry, like, as she nodded to him, she wore the odd expression of someone who had attended a wedding and a funeral on exactly the same day.
Which, no.
I don't know what...
you would pick one or the other, I would imagine.
There's exactly one expression that's appropriate for that, and that is an emoji, and it is the emoji :tilde.
Yeah. I just want to say a couple things before we move on and take a break here. There's a few lines in this that made me go, oh no, not this, because they were so cliche. This is one of them. You could probably think of a couple of the others. One of them you mentioned already, which was that she wasn't thin, she wasn't thick, she was attractive in a way that defied conventional standards of beauty. And I was like, oh God, here we go again. There's one part where it's described as she had the air about her of someone was beautiful, but didn't know that she was. Ooh, surprise.
Adrienne's not like other moms. She's a mom I'd like to record scratch.
The soft curls were gone, and so was any evidence of makeup. In their place was a natural beauty.
Yes!
You know who says shit like that? Fucking assholes.
It all felt right to her. He felt right. And as she stood behind him, she knew that she would allow herself to go to the place she was meant to be.
When he spoke again, his voice was soft, as if trying to comfort a small child. I'm sorry if that made you uncomfortable, but this weekend, it's like something I didn't know existed. I mean, it's been a dream.
Shit,
You've been a dream.
Oh, you went there. I thought we might get through this without getting to the epistolary component at the very end. So basically, Paul's son, Mark, hates him so bad he's fucked off to Ecuador to be a not at all patronizing purveyor of medical help to people who need it. And then Paul follows him there and writes many a fine letter back to old Adrienne until it comes to pass that I forget what happens. Probably another hurricane.
It's a car accident during some kind of big storm.
Yeah, another big storm.
It's in Ecuador, so I don't know if it was a hurricane or just a mudslide or something like that. But
right. Oh, it was a classic Ecuadorian white storm.
Yeah.
Kills only white people that we hear about. Yeah. Because we sure don't hear about anybody else who might get killed. He literally saves his son's life, which his son understands instinctively is because his dad has finally found love.
Yeah.
And then dies.
He's finally found the love of a lifetime.
It is, as Van Morrison once said in a not at all padded line, the love that loves to love the love that loves to love.
It's true. And just one more thing, in case you were wondering exactly who this book is for. There was one sentence in this that made me simultaneously angry, sad, and groan out loud. Or one paragraph.
I call that my morning constitutional.
But what did it mean for him or her? Knowing that he loved her, as wonderful as it was, wasn't the only thing going on here. His look had spoken of desire as well, and that had frightened her, even more than knowing he loved her. Making love, she'd always believed, was more than simply a pleasurable act between two people. It encompassed all that a couple was supposed to share: trust and commitment, hopes and dreams, a promise to make it through whatever the future might bring. She'd never understood one-night stands or people who drifted from one bed to the next every couple of months. It relegated the act to something meaningless, no more special than a goodnight kiss on the front steps.
Whores, she thought. Sluts. They'll all get what's coming to them when I finish sharpening this knife.
Yeah, that part, I just like, by the end of that paragraph, my mouth was slightly agape. It's like, there are people who place a lot of emotional import on sex. That's totally fine. Boy, that got real judgy by the end there. All right, don't point a finger at other people, because then you're pointing 3 fingers back at yourself.
I like that you corrected that, because a lot of people say 4, but very few people can actually physically make their thumb point back at themselves.
Yeah, and usually when I point, I'm doing like the finger gun.
Yeah.
And that means I'm about to start the super kick party.
I like to do a double-barreled thing, so I always point with 2 hands and both my index and middle fingers and my thumb cocked like a hammer. So really there's only a total of 4 fingers pointing back at me. I got 2 fingers on each hand plus 2 thumbs. So I got you outnumbered 6-4, and that means
you win. It's like when I count from 1 to 5 on my hands, I like to start with my pinky finger, because then I can go in order really easily. But
I'm going to quit the show. That's the most perverted thing I've
think about
ever
it, right?
heard.
When you do 1, 2, when you get to 3, you got to change the positioning of your thumb to hold down your finger. If you start with your pinky, it's so much more efficient.
Uncomfortable right now. That is legitimately perverted. I think we better take a break.
Yeah. All right. All right, it's time to drop the needle back on that Foreigner record, because we're still here talking about Nights in Rodanthe.
The book that is walking into your room and seeing your folks rolling. They're rock and rolling.
That's true.
They got your Kiss records out.
I mean, look.
Mommy's all right. Daddy's all right.
But and seeing them fuck is a little weird.
If they want to get freaky, that's their thing, man.
Yeah, I don't know.
If they hadn't gotten freaky, you wouldn't be here.
It's true. And that song has a great key modulation. Anyway.
Everything about Cheap Trick's songwriting is A+.
A+. Surrender, one of my favorite songs to play on the guitar. If I'm having acoustic guitar and we're ever at a camping sort of place together, you will undoubtedly hear me pitifully wail the lyrics to that song. And then kind of start to cry at the end when it goes, "We're all right. We're all right." Yes. Anyway, it's time for the most unrestrained emotional segment in podcasting history.
Prepare to surrender
yourself to dramatic readings.
But don't give yourself away.
Dramatic readings. We're gonna make it sound recorded. Dramatic readings. Yeah, I got some words for you.
All right, so in dramatic readings, we're going to tell you, yes, we'll tell you, you'll meet girls like this. But we'll also read you parts from this book. And be careful, you never know what you'll catch from bad books like this. That was a very, very stretched metaphor.
To carry the metaphor further.
Yeah. By the way, how many other verses did that song have? Oh, whatever happened to all this season's bad Nicholas Sparks book of the year? So I think he writes like 8 of them per month. Would you like to go first, or should I?
I'll let you go first.
Okay. All right, so this part of the book is where we're dropped right back into our framing device that, if you were reading it, you probably would have forgot existed by now.
It really jarred me when we rolled back around. I'd legit forgotten that poor Amanda's husband had dropped dead.
And that poor Amanda had to sit there listening to her mom just fucking rattle off this 240 some odd page story about her failed romance. But not failed romance, I guess her tragically ended romance.
It's a fiction romance, like in the Buzzcocks.
Yeah, exactly. But this is right when she's getting to the sexy part. And we take a step back. We're in the framing device once again. In the kitchen, Amanda stared at her mother. She hadn't spoken since Adrienne had started her story, and she'd gone through 2 glasses of wine, the second a bit faster than the first. Neither of them was speaking now, and Adrienne could feel the anxious expectation of her daughter as she waited for what would come next. But Adrienne couldn't tell Amanda about that, nor did she need to. Amanda was a grown woman. She knew what it meant to make love to a man. She was also old enough to know that even though that was a wonderful part of their discovery of each other, it had been just that, a part of it. She loved Paul, and had he not meant so much to her, had the weekend been only physical in nature, there would have been nothing to remember other than a few pleasurable moments, special only because she had been alone so long. What they shared, however, were feelings that had been buried for far too long, feelings that were meant for just the 2 of them, and only then. Besides, Amanda was her daughter. Call it old-fashioned, but sharing the details would be inappropriate. Some could talk about such things, but Adrienne never understood how they could. The bedroom, she always thought, was a place of shared secrets. But even if she'd wanted to tell, she knew she wouldn't be able to find the words. How could she describe the sensation as he began to unbutton her blouse, or the shivers that traveled along the length of her body when he traced his finger along her belly? How heated their skin felt as their bodies came together, or the texture of his mouth where he kissed her, or how she felt when he pressed her fingers hard into her skin, or the sound of his breathing and hers, and how their breaths quickened as they began to move as one. No, she wouldn't speak of those things. Instead, she would let her daughter imagine what had happened, because Adrienne knew that only her imagination could possibly capture even the slightest bit of the magic she'd felt in Paul's arms. "Mom?" Amanda finally whispered. "You want to know what happened?" Amanda swallowed uncomfortably. "Yes," was all Adrienne would say. "You mean yes," she said it again. Amanda took a drink of wine. Steeling herself, she lowered the glass to the table. "And?" Adrienne leaned forward as if not wanting anyone to overhear. "Yes," she whispered, and with that, she glanced off to the side, retreating into the past. This is where the wind chime sounds play, and we go right back into flashback again.
It's formally identical to like the Red Shoe Diaries or something of its ilk.
Yeah.
But leaving all the, sweatier bits out.
I do like the fact that I don't think Nicholas Sparks realizes how terrified he makes Amanda sound throughout this. Throughout the whole thing, it sounds like she's sitting there like gritting her teeth like, "Mom's going to talk about sex. Fuck. Mom's going to tell me about sex. I don't want to know."
It's just slugging wine. It's all right, get it over with.
Like, God, I don't know. No, please. I do not need to know if there was oral involved. Let's just move on. And I don't think Sparks realizes that he's written it this way. But it's great.
How could she tell Amanda what it was like when he'd grabbed a fistful of her hair and growled, "Bend over. It's my turn for some piston action."
Well, I mean, the bedroom is a place of shared secrets, especially the top drawer of the... et cetera, et cetera. Adrienne knew that Amanda would need to imagine where they kept the cock rings.
Yeah.
All right, sorry.
Adrienne and Amanda had never agreed how to clean and care for your harnesses. Amanda was like, "They're leather, they're probably fine." But Adrienne knew that oiling them often and keeping them supple was the best way to ensure a long, pleasurable life of service for her sex equipment.
Taking care of the only bed and breakfast in Rodanthe with a sex swing was not an easy task. But Adrienne was up for the job.
Oh my God. How
what if you wrote this?
Millions of dollars would he make writing like Nicholas Sparks After Dark?
That's what I was just thinking is like 50 Shades this up a bit, Like But it's still like very tame and for like older people, but it would be a little more raunchy. He'd be like, I have very unconventional desires, and then like whip out like a 70s porno tape that he wants to play while they do it.
Either that or I have unconventional interests. So show me. And he shows her his model trains, but they're real sexy somehow.
Sexy model trains are the best kind. He just wants to do it with the conductor hat on.
Oh, he's George R. R. Martin.
Call me captain.
Yeah. I won't. Look, you got to pick.
Yeah.
You can be called Captain or Doc.
No, not me. I've never operated any sort of seafaring vessel.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Other than a surfboard, right before a hurricane.
Anyway, if you'd like talk of hard fucking nautical matters and captain's hats, can I refer you to our last Friends Only episode over on the Patreon?
Yep, we get into that in great detail.
I'm going to tug at my collar and admit ruefully, it gets a little blue.
I want to say, you said Nicholas Sparks After Dark. I can't stop thinking of it right now as Sparks After Darks, which, great title for the series.
Uh-huh.
So there you go.
Dark Sparks.
Oh, After Darks with Nicholas Sparks.
The sparks will fly.
It's the only root beer with bite.
Sip a Barks. Sit down with some Nicholas Sparks.
After Dark in the park.
Okay, I'm going to read my dramatic reading
Friend
now.
Mark, which might be kind of uncomfortable unless you two are into each other, and then you dig it.
And unfortunately, after 7 or 8 books, the series jumps the shark. And that joke knocked it out of the park.
Oh, these are words that rhyme. I'm starting to get it. What a lark.
If you want to continue, I'll listen. I'll be like, hark.
Fuck you. It's Nicholas Spark After Dark. Just making his mark in the sand with a pen that he bought from the store. None of that rhymed. Let's keep going. Okay.
That routine just dropped sharply out of drive and into park.
My skills, they were so quick and small, they resembled a quark. Pop the cork. I don't know how much of this we're going to keep. All right, anyway.
Forcing the feeling away, she spent the next few minutes making sure all the windows were closed and latching the shutters from the inside on the bottom floor. Upstairs, she took care of the empty guest rooms first, then made her way to the room where he'd slept. After unlocking the door, she stepped in, noticing that Paul had made his own bed. His duffel bags were folded beside the chest of drawers. The clothes he'd worn earlier that morning had already been put away, and his loafers were on the floor near the wall, toes together and facing out. Her children, she thought to herself, could learn something from him about the virtues of keeping things neat in their rooms. In his bathroom, she closed up a small window, and as she did, she spied the soap dish and brush he used to create lather lying next to his razor. Both were near the sink, next to a bottle of aftershave. Unbidden, an image came to her of him standing over the sink that morning, and as she pictured him there, some instinct told her that he'd wanted her beside him.
I want you beside me while I shave and stuff for some reason.
She shook her head, feeling strangely like a teenager poking through a parent's bedroom, and headed to the window beside his bed. As she was closing it up, she saw Paul carrying one of the rockers off the porch to store beneath the house.
Was it Shawn Michaels or Marty Jannetty? I couldn't fucking help it. I'm
Just
sorry.
one moment.
I'm sorry.
Just one moment.
3 people are laughing right now.
Adrienne can't even get her perv on watching him get sweaty moving a little furniture.
Watching her get sweaty like Marty Jannetty. I'm sorry. I'll stop. I'll zip. You can go back a couple sentences. I won't make any wrestling jokes this time, I promise.
He moved as if he were 20 years younger. Her ex-husband Jack wasn't like that. Over the years, Jack had grown heavy around the midsection from one too many cocktails, and his belly tended to shimmy if he engaged in any sort of physical activity.
Feeling very seen right now.
But Paul was different. Paul, she knew, wasn't like Jack in any way. And it was there, while upstairs in his room, that Adrienne first felt a vague sense of anxious anticipation, something akin to what a high roller might feel while hoping for a lucky roll of the dice.
God, like, even the shit that isn't about romance sounds like 70s rock lyrics. Sorry, continue.
Beneath the house, Paul was getting things ready. The hurricane guards were corrugated aluminum, 2.5 feet wide and 6 feet high, and all had been labeled with a permanent marker as to which window they protected on the house. Paul began lifting them from the stack and setting them aside, putting each group together, mentally outlining what he needed to do. He was just finishing up. As Adrienne came back down, thunder sounded in the distance, rumbling long and low over the water. The temperature, she noticed, was beginning to drop. How's it going? She asked. Her tone, she thought, was unfamiliar, like another woman was speaking the words. A woman all horned up in some way.
Is she possessed? What's going on?
It's easier than I thought it would be, he said. All I have to do is match up the grooves and slip them into the braces. Then drop these clips in. What about the wood to hold it in place? That's not too bad either.
Wow. You know, until you read it like that, I never realized how much an entendre was going on.
Oh, yeah.
there.
No, it's he fixes her cable. Let's just say that.
I was just reading it totally as like an instruction manual on how to install storm shutters.
You know, it's as Shakespeare said, it's never just about the storm shutters.
Yeah, I think I was just too busy thinking about how sad it was when Shawn Michaels kicked Marty Jannetty through the barbershop window. Sorry, folks. I've been known to do this, and it's been a long time since I've gone off on an extended one, so give me some credit here.
Last night, noted cheap shot artist Ryan Reeves cheap-shotted noted cheap shot artist Tom Wilson
in the back,
injuring him.
I saw that. I read about it on the website.
Yeah,
I'm trying to keep up with.
It was a harsh toke. That's not a hockey term, but I believe it is the most accurate term for the situation that obtains.
And didn't one of them just recently come back from a suspension?
That would be the guy who got injured for being a noted cheap shot artist and dirty player.
See, I'm engaging. It's not just a one-way street. I've been reading the Deadspin hockey articles.
Yeah, you know what is a one-way street? It's the street I live on. And every house on that street, somebody tougher lives. And at the very end of that street...
is it called Bad Street by any chance?
I think it's called
Atlanta, GA?
Yeah, I think it's called Racist Street, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah.
Anyway, that's a joke for another 4 people. So that was dramatic readings.
All right.
And now it's time, Jay, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you a series of searing, probing questions.
Oh, I'm going to get seared and probed?
Yep.
That's a horrible way to prepare a steak.
Just like a mediocre steak. Yeah. Exactly.
What is your fave? What is your fave? When you're presented with a list of options, what is your fave?
I'm going to dip you in hot sauce and put you under the broiler like you're a stick of tofu, friend.
And you should only flip those burgers once. If you do it more than that, you're doing it wrong. You got to trust the process.
Right. Jay, what is your fave?
I'm not the one with the questions. You're the one with the questions. So let her rip.
Can you handle the truth? We're going to find out. So I've mentioned earlier that this was a book that's largely about a man's fantasy of what a woman's fantasy about a man would be.
That's really, really true. Like, we're through the looking glass twice in this book.
It's a little like
it's a boring man's fantasy what a woman's man's fantasy of a man. Well, like, he'd be real good at putting up storm shutters. He'd wear loafers and polo shirts a lot, and like
spend a lot of time working on his latest best-selling book. I bet.
Yeah, his name would be something like
Rickolas Garks.
Yeah, I was gonna go for Rickolas. Richolas Fark, something, I don't know.
Legolas Marks.
I'm half Tony Stark, half
Oh.
Nicholas Sparks.
Legolas Marks. I just invented all of Tumblr.
Well, too bad it's gone now.
Womp womp. Okay. But anyway, it's a little like that Futurama thing where the femputer says, do you know what it's like to be a femputer in a manputer manbot's world? And Bender responds, oh, how I wish I knew or cared what you just said.
Yeah.
So, Jay, what is your fave in this fantasy of a man about what a woman's fantasy of a man would be? What is your fave thing that Paul is just offhandedly super good at? Quick carpentry? Keeping his room neat and tidy? Plastic surgery, but like the good kind that helps people, not the bad kind that's for selfish people? Building a fire? Maintaining a workout routine? Navigating a strange city? Talking about feelings? Or reconciling with his son, or, other.
I'm going to stay on book here, and I'm going to say building a fire. Because that's an important skill to know, and I think there's a reason it's one of the first things you learn in the Boy Scouts, for instance. It's very important to know how to get a fire going, even if it does just only exist within the context of a fireplace at a bed and breakfast where there's already logs and a bunch of matches.
As somebody who is bad at making fires, I agree with you, it's very important, but I also want to say it is text that he was not a scout.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, he does give the Boy Scout salute despite saying that he's not a Boy Scout. Stolen valor, motherfucker.
It's not. Yeah. Yeah.
You're no Eagle Scout, Paul.
He
Put those
doesn't
two
even-
fingers down.
Doesn't even say Eagle Scout, man.
Yeah.
And as a Cub Scout washout, I feel that.
Yeah, well, the Cub Scouts sign is different than the Boy Scout sign.
I know, the Cub Scout sign, if I
They hold
remember
out
right.
3 fingers.
Yeah, it's exactly the same as the Girl Scout sign,
Yeah.
which if you are a lowly Cub Scout hanging out with Boy Scouts will get you treated exactly like you'd imagine.
Well, yeah, I mean, at least when I was a kid and I was involved in the Scouts, you basically got treated exactly how you'd imagine, no matter what, if you displayed any trait other than, like, traditional, obnoxious 1990s masculinity. Like, you were either Bart Simpson or you were getting pantsed constantly. It was a great time in my life.
Yeah.
I quit Boy Scouts, actually, because a kid threatened me with his pocket knife and said he was going to cut my throat if I didn't give him all my food for the rest of the week we were camping. And I couldn't tell the Scoutmaster because it was his dad. Boy Scouts rule! But yeah, learn to make a fire. By the way, the way the way Paul makes a fire in this wouldn't work. So anyway, continue.
I got picked up and thrown in a trash can at a summer camp.
Yeah.
Scouting is fucking rules.
Scouting is just basically like... people obscure this now, but it's just a breeding ground for awful bullies that grow up to be politicians and shit.
But they gave me a knife and taught me how to make a fire, and who's laughing now? They taught me how to tie knots, and who's laughing now?
just gonna
There's a
say-
trail of corpses. Who's laughing now?
I can tie 6 different types of knots to steady a boat that I'll never be able to afford.
Oh my god, that would be a pretty good, like, Blumhouse
and
cheapo horror movie.
The Scout.
Yes.
And he's still wearing, like, the uniform.
Oh my god, he's got the cool little bandana thing.
Yeah. That's what the only part I miss about... And you wonder why I got beat up as a Boy Scout a lot. But that's the part I really miss was the cool bandana with the little metal tie that you
Do you
slid
guys
up
think,
it.
hey guys, do you think this kerchief is particularly fetching?
like-
And then like pummel sound.
I like to call it the Dean Venture.
Yeah. But anyway, as always, Hollywood, if you would like us to drop what we're doing and come make The Scout for you, email us at I don't even own a television at gmail.com.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like Blumhouse would probably drop like $200 or $300 on something like that.
Fuck yeah. And then like the ball's in our court. Like I'm going to call up Jeremy Saulnier and be like, bro, come over. We got a barn burner to make.
I'm making a mock sigh. Attractively. Okay, we're back. And we're not talking about Nights in Rodanthe anymore, nor Nights in White Satin, thank goodness.
The sun is coming up over the horizon. The storm has blown all the bad vibes away, and we're ready to enjoy the sunrise of happiness.
I'm loving this yoga class. So this is the part of the show where we recommend things that we enjoy and that we think you should partake in. So why don't you go first?
So if you are in the market for a short romance about people who deserve better that ends badly, instead of Nights at Rodanthe, I recommend you read a little banger called Ethan Frome, possibly the biggest bummer in the canon.
And canonical it is, and also a really good book.
Yeah.
Not written by Nicholas Sparks, unfortunately. You might have to leave the airport to find it.
Yeah.
But yeah, good call. I'm going completely off the rails. I'm not going to talk about romance books.
On a crazy train?
I am. I'm not even going to talk about books, and I'm going to recommend something I think most people would not expect to ever hear me recommend on this show. But I'm going to recommend an anime series that I've been enjoying greatly. I believe it is only on Netflix right now, and it is called Hero Mask. And I think you should check it out. It's a really cool action thriller. It's about biotechnology, and it tells a story in some really interesting ways. The art is cool. It's grisly as fuck, so if you're opposed to gore, you may not enjoy it. But
gore.
There you go. You can do it too.
Yeah.
Patrick,
I learned it from watching you, Jay.
Patrick Waugh?
Nice.
Yeah, there we go.
Well
That's
done.
a guy. He's a guy. But yeah, anyway, Hero Mask, I'm pretty sure it's only on Netflix, but I liked it a lot.
Nice.
And I mean, that's saying a lot from me because I am not an anime guy. I think I've said that several times. So
I mean, you like your Attacks on Titan.
Yeah, I like all the big shit that real anime fans like to make fun of. Like, oh god, it's so basic and mainstream. And this might be that. I don't know, but I'm enjoying the hell out of it, and I'm almost done with the series or the season. So
what was the thing? Oh yeah, I was flipping through. I'd heard people talk about the new Voltron, so I put it on, and once again, I felt exactly like a chump because I was like, holy shit, hey. I didn't think we were going to get giant robot Voltron formed, but then bam, climactic battle in the first episode. Yes.
Well, I mean, seriously, why would you make any Voltron-related thing and not have Voltron form?
Because this is the age of Netflix, which means you need to waste everybody's fucking time for
that's true.
5 episodes.
Episode 6, finally, they'd find the guy who forms the head.
Yeah, that's literally what I was expecting. And as I realized that,
they'd have to rehabilitate him from a drug treatment center or something where he's been abandoned by his parents who don't care. And
yeah, and I was deeply resenting myself for ever hitting play on that when I had that realization. But then it subverted my expectations by actually attempting to be a viable piece of entertainment. Like, make a viewer happy rather than string a user along to increase engagement metrics.
I mean, there's a lot to be said about this and probably beyond the scope of that show. But I think when you start using the language of addiction to describe entertainment properties such as binge, there's maybe a problem with how you're approaching storytelling as a medium. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Just a thought, kids.
Yeah. Like, you're going to get strung out on this new show.
Yeah.
I hate every time anyone says binge watching. It makes me shudder.
You won't be able to stop cramming it into yourself.
Yeah. Get a hit of the latest new series on USA. Just drive it directly into your veins.
Steal something and sell it to watch the next episode.
Take money from your mom's purse because Mr. Robot is back for more. Okay, anyway.
Do you love The Walking Dead? Would you cut a finger off for The Walking Dead?
Would you hang out at some dude's house and watch him play Halo for 3 hours just so you could get an episode of The Walking Dead? Look, he's really paranoid. He can't have that many people coming and going from his apartment. His neighbors might notice, so you gotta chill for a while. then he'll give you the new episode. All right. Anyway, so moving on. Normally we would go right into letters here, but I think before we do, there's an actual serious topic we need to discuss because this has really reached a fever pitch lately. And Collision, you're better at these sort of things than I am, so maybe you should lead us off here.
If I were Jay, I would describe this as a para-letter matter. So those of you recommending things, like, they can be a lot of fun. They're mostly fun when it feels like someone's reaching out to us and trying to share something with us.
Yes.
Like, that's a generous thing. That's a great thing. We love that.
Like, for instance, through several people on the internet, we just discovered there's a series of cozy mysteries told from the perspective of a dog who solves crimes.
The family dog.
Now, I did not know these exist. That sounds awesome. We like those kind of recommendations,
Yes.
for sure.
If you're recommending something you wouldn't yourself enjoy, that's a little less good. And I just want to say this, recommendations do kind of wreak havoc with our proprietary book and guest picking algorithm that I've worked very hard on, Jay's worked very hard on, and that algorithm, really separates us from our competitors in the blogging space, because as we all know, there are no other podcasts. And right now I'm actively seeking venture capital for our book and guest picking algorithm. Mm-hmm. So every recommendation that comes in kind of fucks that up, and that's... Just stop and think if you want me to have to recompile before you send a recommendation.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, it's not easy,
Yeah.
We've got our whole Webpack config set up. It's just, yeah.
It's a lot. That's all I'm saying. That there's stuff behind the scenes that you don't even know about. Those of you recommending trigger warning in particular, this has come up, I think, 4 times in the last 3 days. And
before that, even as soon as it was announced, which was in July, we got about 10 or 12 recommendations for this book. Continue.
So
sorry.
it's been coming up a lot, but here's the thing: people know exactly 2 things about it. It's called Trigger Warning, which is a hilarious satirical name, and it's got a sassy back cover. Okay, I'm going to read the sassy back cover.
Okay.
Johnstone Country, where others fear to tread. From the best-selling authors of The Doomsday Bunker, Black Friday, but not the one you've heard of, and Stand Your Ground, but not the law, comes the explosive story of a college under siege and freedom under fire. And now it's time for some all-caps action. Political correctness won't save you. Former Army Ranger Jake Rivers is not your typical Kelton College student. He is not spoiled, coddled, or ultra-lib like his classmates who sneer at the, quote, soldier boy. Rivers is not, quote, triggered by, quote, microaggressions. He is not outraged by, quote, male privilege and, quote, cisgender bathrooms. He does not need a, quote, safe space or coloring books. Jake's needs an education. And when terror strikes, the school needs Jake, ... Without warning, the sounds of gunfire plunge the campus into a battle zone.
I'm out. I'm already out.
I'm going to skip a couple sentences. I'm going to read the very end. This time, the aggression isn't, quote, micro. It's life or death, and only the strong survive. ...
So, yeah, I don't want to belabor this point. I don't want to stretch this out farther than we need to.
Too late. I already belabored it.
Yeah, but if you're recommending this to us, what you want us to do is a hate read.
Right.
And then you want us to go on the air and give a bunch of publicity to a book that is specifically designed to piss off people like you, the listener, and us, the hosts of this show. I don't want to be part of this outrage machine that exists solely to manufacture discussion about something so horrid that it should not exist. Plus, people at home listening to this show, do you want to listen to 2 white men in the middle-aged years of their lives make jokes about school shootings? Is that fun? Like, why do you want us to do this? Stop suggesting this.
That doesn't sound fun to me. I just want to say, yeah, that scene is kind of emphatically not my jam. We're only bringing this up, and again, I apologize. Like, I know I'm belaboring it a little bit. I'm only doing it because I think there's a chance that some people suggesting it to us don't follow us on every social channel, which, I mean, that seems weird and wrong to me, but like, you know, you live your lives. You make your choices. I personally would prefer you subscribe to a full spectrum battery of the IDEO TV pod experience.
Agreed.
If I have a bean salad recipe, I think you need to know about it.
Yeah, or if I'm drunk at night and looking for bands with cool spoonerism names, for instance.
If I'm taking a nap.
Yeah.
If I've encountered some bathroom graffiti that seems particularly like the mon juste to me. I think that you should probably know about this. I get that apparently that's not a universally shared opinion, so that's why we're talking about this.
Yeah,
but
like
anyway,
many of you may have not seen my 5 or 6 tweet in a row rant about this from last July, when I was like, our goal is to entertain our listeners and not to traumatize them.
Yeah, and we come into this like hoping we're going to find a book that we can have fun with. There's just going to make an assumption. Maybe that will make an ass out of you and me, but I don't think it's likely that I'm going to find an unexpected gem in this particular book, whether because the prose is particularly scintillating or the characterization is appealingly wonky.
Please don't ask us to cover this book. Neither of us wants to read it. You probably don't want to hear us talk about it, even though you think you do.
I just read the back of it in a super duper sarcastic way. So, in a way, haven't we covered it?
Yeah, we have. So, that's all you're going to get.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to some real letters.
So, before you recommend something, ask yourself, am I sharing or inflicting? Is this good for IDEO TV Pod? Or does it give one IDEO TV pause?
Ooh.
Remember, what you should be shooting for is IDEO TV Pause-core.
Yeah, I mean, even when we do Nicholas Sparks books, we come in hoping for the best. I really, there's nothing I hate more than knowing that we're about to record an episode about something that I absolutely despise, like...
Yeah, or that we're, like, legitimately upset about.
Yeah. But anyway, okay, so we're done lecturing you now. Let's move on to some real letters, or a real letter. Here's a song.
A, letter B, letter C, letter D, letter E, letter M, letter G, letter, got a lot of letters.
And this comes to us from Dave, fake last name, and it goes a little something like the following deep notes. Deep notes. From an old shoulder to...
Hello.
I did a lot more singing this episode than I, for one, had expected.
I want to know what love is.
Well, Nick Sparks can show you.
If you have a very narrow definition of love. All right, anyway.
Dear Jay and Collision, like a lot of listeners, I was first introduced to your podcast for the Ready Player One episode. It was earlier this year when the movie was about to come out. I had read a 2-page excerpt from the book and couldn't understand A, why it was so popular, and B, how it got published in the first place. Someone pointed to me to your episode, and it was hilarious.
The answer to both questions, by the way, is nerds. Anyway, sorry.
After that and the snow crash one, I was hooked. I stole things, sold them to get to the next episode.
All my furniture, God.
I snuck up to unconscious people and riffled their pockets, looking for another episode. But that's not where episodes come from.
Yeah.
I listened to another couple of random episodes and then decided I should go back to the beginning.
Don't do that. It was really bad at the beginning. Anyway.
Disagree. I've been listening to all the old episodes in order. So comments below are for things already a few years old that I'm sure you've forgotten about. Episode 25, On the Brink. This one made me stop what I was doing because I'm about to ruin the image and style that you were used to. And say aloud, what the fuck? In the Chevy Chase movie Fletch, there's a throwaway line along the lines of, well, someone upstairs is bucking from a promotion. It's probably that pederast Hanrahan. I can only assume it's a direct reference to Peter Hanrahan, the guy with the teenage girlfriend. I, for one, think that that's unlikely. I just think Hanrahan is an inherently funny name. If you're Irish and have that name, do not at me. I'm sorry. I think it's funny sounding.
Yeah. I somehow very much doubt that Chevy Chase was referencing a Ben Stein novel.
Yeah. But it does have that Chevy Chase improvised feel, except that the funniest thing Chevy Chase was ever involved with was something that Johnny Carson said about Chevy Chase. And now you need to know that Chevy Chase was on The Tonight Show roughly 11 bazillion times. And Johnny Carson was possibly the greatest television host of all time.
Agreed.
He could take anybody and make them look like they fit on one of the biggest nights of television.
Yep.
He just had that skill.
Yeah.
What Johnny Carson said about Chevy Chase was, that man couldn't ad-lib a fart after a baked bean dinner.
That is great. I also just love the knowledge that like Carson was carrying Chevy Chase through all these routines. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense though. Like, there really is a reason Johnny Carson has the reputation that he has, for sure.
But anyway, that is the most savage diss I think I've ever heard in the world of comedy.
It's pretty raunchy.
So somebody wrote that line, and that means, did that person have knowledge of Ben Stein's novel? Again, I got to go with Jay here. I don't think anybody has knowledge of that Ben Stein novel.
I don't think most people know Ben Stein wrote novels, to be honest. Like, I was surprised.
I think most people, when they hear Ben Stein, think
Ferris Bueller?
Or, if they're lucky, the Visine commercial guy?
Yeah, or when he had that really shitty game show on Comedy Central where it wasn't even actually his money.
Right, or when he wrote all those polemics about how abortion is evil.
Yeah, I was going to say, or when he wrote speeches for arch conservatives. But yeah, anyway.
Episode 47, Illusions. One of the letter writers asked about the tendency of some authors to overuse certain words or phrases, and this one hit very close to home. I started reading David Wingrove's Chung-Ku sci-fi series back in the 1990s when it was first coming out, but it moved on to other things after the third or fourth book. After a few years, I decided to return to the series and looked up on Amazon to find out the title of the next book I had to read. By chance, I read one of the reviews, and it mentioned that all throughout the series, Wingrove had his characters shiver at important moments. Having read that, as I was reading the book, it stood out. Every single time a character did it, I was immediately taken out of the story. It was so noticeable and terrible. Keep reading crap, Dave. So that made me think, like, are there things that writers kind of crutch on or overuse would be a better way to put it?
Would you call it a paratextual soupçon, perhaps?
Damn it. I was hoping I would evade this devastating critique.
Hey, I got on myself for it, too. And let me tell you, I learned the word paratext, and there was no turning back.
Yeah, I mean, I know about 4 words at any given time, so sorry if I'm harping on one of them. I would say, I've talked about this before, asperity. If I see the word asperity in a book, I know what kind of book it is, and it's never the kind of book that I like.
Yeah, I'm the same way with conjuring in any reference that isn't about magic. Like, if somebody is conjuring something and they're not performing some act of magic,
right,
then I feel like I'm generally reading an author with a style that I do not enjoy.
Right. As for specific authors with specific phrases they overuse, I guess I could have done a little bit better prep work for this.
Yeah, I would have needed to know this was coming. Like, I am absolutely sure, reading the sheer amount of like white male lit that I've read in my life, like, I guarantee you Dave Eggers has some fucking cornerstones that I'm just not thinking of. I guarantee you Michael Chabon does. I guarantee you all these fellas do. but I can't think of anything. Or, here's a good one. How about Jonathan Franzen and his overuse of, here's a list of things you should do.
Oh,
He's written like 8 of those articles at this point.
fatality. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. The guy is hurting for money and exposure. So anytime he has the opportunity to place an article, it makes sense that he would do. Wait.
Yeah. There's a huge flaw in your logic here, my friend.
Wait.
Don't,
No, I can do this all night.
Don't tell me. I never got a chance to love you.
Ooh, good one. Yeah, there's a phrase that Vito Bratta overuses. Every solo has a 3-note
Yeah, it's true.
bend.
It's this minor pentatonic full stop. I don't know.
Anyway, great question. Sorry, we were slightly underprepared to answer it. We will probably come back to this because it's one of the things that once it's in the back of your brain, you can't stop looking for it.
I mean, I think we will probably return to it next episode because, once again, I'm given a little bit of a clue here, but we're talking about next time around a very prolific author that we've yet to tackle and who has some very, what's the word that I'm looking for? Repetitive stylistic tendencies.
You might say he shovels it on.
Yeah, so that's right. Dean Koontz's Shovel Masters. But yeah, I have a feeling we might come back to this because this was definitely a man who was fond of kind of the crutch, the catchphrase, if you will.
Right. The thing that allows you to keep hitting the keys and get onto that next page.
You know what I'm talking about, Mean Gene of the literary world. Yeah.
And if you know what we're talking about, you can talk to us back at @gmail.com or IDEO Pod on Twitter, even though we both got really mad on Twitter today and probably won't be on for a bit.
I'm not going on there until people stop asking about that stupid book we were just mentioning because I'm tired of explaining to people that I don't want to spend 2 weeks making myself angry.
That's true. There's also the I Don't Even Own a Television Fun Time Party Pit on Facebook, which you can search for, which is a ton of fun. And if you really love us, you can help us out by donating a little bit of money every month at our Patreon, which is patreon.com/IDEOTVpod. If you donate at the $5 a month level or more, you get a free episode every single month. We have covered such topics on those episodes as Rip Magazine, Spin Magazine,
Fangoria Magazine,
Heavy Metal Magazine,
some movies,
and
we just finished a document written by L. Ron Hubbard that was like his daily affirmations.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting, even if you don't donate, you can still follow our feed there, and we publish a lot of things for free that just don't really fit into the context of the normal show.
That we just kind of sneak out there. If there's stuff that we don't get to in the course of a normal episode, perhaps an additional bonus reading, perhaps with some particularly bouncy and bodacious backing music.
I was going to say, if perhaps Collision gives me a cookbook where every word rhymes, I may make a couple rap tracks out of them and put them up there for free. So you have nothing to lose for following us there.
It's not just haters Jay fries up in the skillet.
No, it's true. I also make a wicked chicken cordon orange, whatever the fuck that is. And you'll understand if you follow us on Patreon.
That's French for chicken orange rope.
Okay. Sounds disgusting.
Are you not appetized?
Can't wait to eat that orange rope.
Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for joining us to find out what love is. And until next time,
keep reading crap.
And keep Pinot in that Grigio.